You knew this. You didn't tell me. Please, it's not what you think. I can explain. We had a deal, and you lied.
I never meant to hurt you, I swear.
The woman standing on Ethan Cole's porch at 2 a.m. was on every business magazine in America, and she was holding a marriage contract in one hand and a gun in the other. "Pretend to be my husband for 30 days, Billionaire CEO Vivian Ashford said, rain dripping off her black coat. "And I'll save your daughter's life." Then she turned, aimed the gun into the darkness behind his trailer, and fired at a man Ethan hadn't even seen. The scream outside was sharp, human, and gone. Inside the house, his 8-year-old daughter stirred in her sleep on the couch beneath a pile of blankets because the heating had been shut off 3 hours earlier. If stories like this hit you right in the chest, subscribe, like the video, and tell me where you're watching from before we begin. Because this one doesn't loosen its grip, not even at the end. Ethan froze in the doorway, one hand still on the deadbolt. "You need to tell me why there's a man bleeding in my yard before you say anything about my daughter." Vivian didn't even flinch. She lowered the gun, calm in the kind of way that made calm feel dangerous. "Private investigator, paid by my uncle. He's been following me for days. Tonight he followed me here." "You came here?" "I came for you." He laughed once, bitter, tired. "Lady, I patch drywall, drive deliveries at night, and spend my mornings pretending overdue bills don't exist. You don't come for men like me." Her eyes shifted past him to the couch. Emma, small body, inhaler on the table, medical bracelet on her wrist. The pink socks his wife used to call lucky. "I know exactly who I came for," Vivian said quietly. "And I know your daughter's surgery deposit is due Friday at 9 a.m. You're $32,000 short." Every muscle in Ethan's body went rigid. He never posted that online, never told neighbors, barely told himself. "How do you know that?" "Because I paid the hospital to delay canceling it." Silence. The rain kept hitting the porch roof like fingers drumming a warning. "I don't need a husband," Vivian said. "I need a man the public will believe I trust. 30 days. Appearances. Events. 1 charity gala. 1 board vote. 1 inheritance clause. In return, your daughter gets the surgery, your debts disappear, and when this is over, you walk away." Ethan stared at her. Walk away from what? She held his gaze for 1 second too long. "That," she said, "depends on what we survive." The sensible answer was no. No to the billionaire in the rain. No to the gun. No to the insane contract. No to the fact that some part of him had already realized she knew things about his life no stranger should know. Then Emma coughed in her sleep. Not a normal cough. The thin, scraping one that always made his chest cave in. He looked at the shutoff notice on the floor. Then at the stack of hospital paperwork on the table. Then at the ring he still wore on a chain around his neck. Because after Claire died, taking it off felt like betrayal, and keeping it on felt like punishment. "What's the catch?" he asked. Vivian's voice dropped. "If you agree, from this moment on, you listen when I tell you something is dangerous. You don't leave my side at public events. You don't ask me certain questions until I'm ready to answer them. That's not how trust works." "No," she said. "It's how survival works." He should have slammed the door. Instead, he said, "I want the hospital paid before sunrise." Her reply came instantly. "Done." "And my daughter comes with me." A flicker passed through Vivian's face. So brief most people would have missed it. Grief. Or fear. "Fine," she said. "But Ethan, if you bring Emma into my world, keep her close. My world breaks things." By sunrise, his daughter's surgery was funded. His trailer had a black SUV parked outside, and every phone in America seemed to explode at once with the headline, "Billionaire CEO Vivian Ashford secretly married." Ethan found out because 3 reporters nearly tackled him while he carried Emma from the car. The cameras flashed so hard his daughter buried her face in his shoulder. Vivian stepped out behind him in a cream coat and diamond earrings, looking like she belonged on magazine covers and battlefields. She wrapped a hand around his arm and smiled at the cameras like none of this was chaos. "Darling," she said, loud enough for every microphone to catch it. "Try not to punch anyone before breakfast." He leaned toward her through clenched teeth. "Darling, tell me why the whole country thinks we eloped." "Because if they think I married a man like you for love," she murmured back, "they won't ask what I'm hiding." The Ashford penthouse sat above the city like a threat. Glass walls, marble floors, staff that moved without speaking, security at every door. Emma stared out at the skyline with wide eyes. "Do rich people sleep up here? It looks like a spaceship." For the first time, Ethan saw something almost human warm Vivian's expression. "Barely," she said. Emma turned to her. "Are you mean?" Ethan nearly choked, but Vivian just blinked. "Sometimes." Emma considered that. "Okay. Me too when I can't breathe." Something in Vivian's face changed then. Softened. Not much, but enough to make Ethan notice. By noon, stylists had fitted him in tailored suits he hated. A publicist had rewritten his life into a polished fairy tale, and Vivian's board had scheduled an emergency dinner to inspect the new husband. Inspect. Like he was livestock. "Your uncle doesn't buy this, does he?" Ethan asked as a woman adjusted his tie for the 3rd time. Vivian stood across the dressing room, fastening earrings with hands so steady it looked practiced. "My Uncle Richard doesn't buy anything he can't control. So why marry at all?" Her jaw tightened. "Because my father's will gives majority control of Ashford Global to me if I'm legally married for 30 consecutive days before the next shareholder vote." Ethan let out a sharp breath. "There it is." "There what is?" "The truth-shaped part." She met his stare in the mirror. "Don't confuse a fragment with the whole thing." At dinner, the humiliation started before dessert. The boardroom table was longer than Ethan's entire trailer. Men in custom suits studied him like he'd crawled out of a roadside ditch. Women smiled with their mouths and not their eyes. Richard Hale sat at the far end, silver-haired, sharp-faced, dangerous in the polished way snakes are beautiful. "So this is the husband," he said. Ethan pulled out Vivian's chair before sitting. "Last time I checked." A few people laughed. Richard didn't. "What do you do, Mr. Cole?" "I work." "I'm sure you do. I meant professionally." Ethan opened his mouth, but Vivian cut in. "He raises a child alone, built a remodeling business from nothing, and, unlike half this table, he knows what honest work feels like." A quiet, ugly tension rolled across the room. Richard dabbed his lips with a napkin. "And how convenient that my niece, one of the most guarded women on earth, falls in love with a man nobody had ever seen beside her until yesterday." Ethan felt every eye move to him. This was the test. This was where he was supposed to smile and play house. Maybe she got tired of men who look expensive and feel cheap. Dead silence. Someone actually dropped a fork. Vivian turned to him slowly, and for one terrifying second, Ethan thought he'd just destroyed everything. Then he saw it. the smallest twitch at the corner of her mouth. Not anger, amusement. Richard's face darkened. Bold words from someone living in my niece's penthouse. Temporary arrangement, Ethan said. Richard leaned back. Temporary things can still be ruined. Under the table, Vivian's hand closed hard around Ethan's wrist. Not affection. Warning. That night, Ethan woke at 3:17 a.m. to voices. He followed them down the hallway, past art worth more than he'd earn in 3 lifetimes, and stopped near Vivian's office door. A doctor stood inside with a leather case. She missed treatment again, the man said. She had a board dinner, Vivian replied. She has lesions on the latest scan. Ethan's blood went cold. Then increase the pain meds, Vivian said. Ms. Ashford, with respect, pain management isn't the point anymore. He heard the clink of glass. Then her voice, low and tired in a way he hadn't heard before. I said, get me 30 days. By the time the doctor left, Ethan was already backing away. Lesions, pain meds, 30 days. The next morning, Vivian looked flawless again, like the night had never happened. She wore white silk and control like armor. Emma sat at the kitchen island eating strawberries she'd arranged into a smiley face. Vivian says rich people call them artisanal berries, Emma said. Vivian glanced up from her coffee. I said absurdly overpriced berries. Emma grinned. Same thing. Ethan studied Vivian's face. No sign of illness, no sign of weakness. Only that same impossible composure. You should be in bed, he said before he could stop himself. Her eyes lifted. Sharp. Excuse me? I heard the doctor. The kitchen went still. Emma looked between them. Children always knew when adults were lying. Maybe because adults did it with so much ceremony. Vivian set down her cup. Emma, Sophia is going to show you the movie room. I want popcorn. You'll get popcorn. When Emma skipped off with the housekeeper, Vivian turned back to Ethan. You were told not to ask certain questions. And you were going to hide this? I am hiding it. What are lesions, Vivian? She stared at him for a long moment. Not your concern. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You buy my daughter's surgery, drag us into a fake marriage, put cameras in our faces, guns in my yard, and somehow your collapsing body isn't my concern? Her voice sharpened. Don't mistake access for intimacy. Then don't mistake money for obedience. They stood there, anger crackling between them. Then Vivian did something Ethan wasn't prepared for. She swayed. Only a little, only for a second. But it was enough. He was around the island before she hit the floor, catching her against him as a wine glass shattered nearby. Up close, she felt too light, too hot. Her breath was uneven against his neck. Don't call anyone, she whispered. You're sick. I'm busy. You're insane. She almost smiled. Almost. That's not new. He helped her to the couch. Her hand gripped his sleeve with shocking strength. If the board knows how sick I am before the vote, she said, fighting for steadiness. Richard takes everything. What exactly is everything? She looked away. And that was the moment Ethan knew there was a bigger secret still buried under all of this. 3 days later, the tabloids attacked. Gold digger husband? Ashford CEO's mystery marriage sparks questions. They printed photos of Ethan's trailer, Claire's grave, Emma leaving the children's hospital. Someone had dug up his bankruptcy. Someone had posted a grainy video of him arguing with a bill collector outside a pharmacy and turned desperation into entertainment. Emma saw it on a tablet in the penthouse library because some idiot staffer left the screen open. "Why are they calling you a loser?" she asked softly. No father is prepared for that sentence. Ethan crouched in front of her. "Because sometimes people with cameras are cruel when they don't know the truth." She looked down. "Did you marry Vivian because I'm sick?" The question cut deeper than any insult. Before he could answer, Vivian stepped into the room. "I married your dad," she said, "because I trusted him before I trusted anybody else." Ethan turned to her. That wasn't part of the arrangement. Emma studied Vivian's face like she was checking for lies. Then she nodded once, as if some private part of her had decided to believe. That should have ended the moment. It didn't. That night, Ethan went looking for proof. He didn't know proof of what, only that secrets had weight, and this apartment felt like it was built on top of a grave. He found the locked door behind Vivian's office. He found the key in her desk. And inside the room, he found his dead wife. Not her body. Worse. Her life. Photos of Claire pinned to a wall. News clippings, medical files, an old employee badge from Ashford Biotech, printed emails, a hospital bracelet from the night she died. And at the center of it all, a single folder with Ethan's name on it. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were copies of every bill he'd drowned under since Claire's car crash. The mortgage foreclosure notice, Emma's diagnosis, a transfer authorization from the Ashford Foundation covering the remaining cost of Emma's heart surgery. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "I should have told you years ago." He heard Vivian behind him before she spoke. "You weren't supposed to find that yet." Ethan turned so fast, papers scattered across the floor. "You knew my wife?" Her face had gone pale. Not embarrassed. Haunted. "She worked for Ashford Biotech 6 years ago. She died 5 years ago." "I know." His voice cracked. "Then start talking." Vivian stepped into the room like every inch cost her. "Claire found evidence that my father and Richard buried fatal side effects from a drug trial. Children got hurt. Families were paid to disappear. She copied the files. She came to me because she thought I was different from them." Ethan felt the world tilt. "She trusted you?" "Yes." "What did you do?" Vivian's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady, which somehow made it worse. "Nothing. I told her I needed time. I was afraid of my father, afraid of Richard, afraid of what they'd do if I helped her." The room blurred around Ethan. 3 days later, Claire's brakes failed on the highway. He lunged before he even knew he was moving. Vivian didn't defend herself, didn't step back. He stopped inches from her face, shaking with rage so violent it made his teeth hurt. "You let my wife die." Her voice broke for the first time. "Yes." Silence crushed the room. "She called me from her car," Vivian whispered. "I still have the voicemail. She was crying. She said if anything happened to her, to make sure you and Emma were protected. Emma was barely 3. Claire thought they'd come after you, too." Ethan backed away like she'd struck him. "Everything about this is rotten." "I know." "You chose me because of guilt?" "I chose you because your wife died trying to expose my family, and I was too cowardly to help her. I chose you because Richard is about to take permanent control of the company that buried those crimes."
I chose you because the clause in the will gives me 30 days to take that power back. And I chose you because if I didn't tell you the truth before I die, then I deserved every terrible thing waiting for me. The last part hit harder than the rest. Before you die? Vivian looked at him. No mask now, no steel, just a woman exhausted by pain and secrets. Glioblastoma, she said. Inoperable. Maybe a few months. Maybe less. For a second, Ethan forgot how to breathe. All that anger was still there, but now it had to stand beside something uglier. Pity. No, not pity. Recognition. Because he knew that look in her eyes. The look of someone already saying goodbye while pretending to stay. He left that night. Not gracefully. Not heroically. He took Emma, got in the SUV, and told the driver to bring them anywhere but there. By morning, Richard's people had moved. Child Protective Services showed up at the motel because of concerns about media instability and unsafe exposure. Emma's school called. The hospital called too. Someone had anonymously challenged the funding for her surgery, claiming fraud. Delays, reviews, more paperwork, more waiting. Emma sat on the bed in that cheap motel room holding her stuffed rabbit, trying not to cry. "Did we do something bad?" she whispered. Ethan sat beside her and pulled her into his chest. "No." "Then why does it feel like everybody's mad at us?" He had no answer that wouldn't break her. She looked up. "Is Vivian really mean?" He opened his mouth to say yes. Instead, he heard himself ask, "Why?" Emma shrugged. "Because she looked lonely. Lonely people act mean." Out of the mouths of children. That evening, he listened to Claire's voicemail. 3 times. The first time, he only heard fear. The second time, he heard traffic, tears, and the moment she realized someone was behind her. The third time, he heard the thing that shattered him. Vivian's name. "Vivian, if you're hearing this," Claire sobbed into the old recording, "don't let them touch my family."
Ethan won't ask anyone for help. He's too proud and too good. If I don't make it home, please make sure Emma grows up knowing I fought for something real. There are moments when grief stops being memory and becomes weather. That motel room felt like drowning. Ethan cried with his fist pressed against his mouth so Emma wouldn't hear. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. When he answered, all he heard was labored breathing. Then Vivian. "Richard knows I kept Claire's files." Her voice was thin, strained, wrong. "He's called an emergency vote tonight. If I don't make it there with the original recordings, everything dies with me." "Why are you calling me?" A beat. "Because you're the only person left who hates them enough to help me." The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone. Every instinct said run. Take Emma. Protect what's left. Let rich people destroy each other. Then Emma tugged his sleeve. "Was that her?" He nodded. "Is she alone?" He looked at his daughter, at the little face that had suffered too much already, and realized the cruelest thing about life was how often the broken were asked to save the breaking. "Yes," he said. Emma swallowed. "Then go."
The Ashford Gala looked like a kingdom dressed for war. Cameras, politicians, investors, crystal chandeliers, smiles sharp enough to cut skin. Ethan arrived in the same black suit from their first board dinner, only now it fit differently. Not because of the tailoring, because he did. He found Vivian backstage, seated in front of the mirror while a makeup artist covered the grey beneath her eyes. Up close, she looked like someone lit from the inside by the last of her strength. When the others left, she met his reflection in the mirror. "You came back. I haven't forgiven you." "I know." "You still lied." "Yes." "And if this goes wrong, my daughter pays for it." Her throat moved. "I know that, too." He stepped closer. "So this is your one chance to tell me there isn't one more secret waiting." She stared at herself in the mirror for a second too long. Then she opened the drawer beside her and pulled out a sealed envelope. On the front, in neat handwriting, were 2 words. "For Emma." Ethan looked up. Vivian's voice went quiet. "If I don't make it through tonight, that includes my medical trust, the Ashford Foundation voting shares once transferred, and enough to make sure she never begs this world for mercy again." Something inside him cracked. "You made my kid your beneficiary." "She likes overpriced berries and tells the truth without flinching. She'd run the world better than most men I know." He laughed, but it came out wrecked. "Don't do that," he said. "Do what?" "Say goodbye while you're still standing here." For the first time since he'd known her, Vivian's eyes filled and didn't empty. "I don't know how to stay," she whispered. Ethan took the envelope, set it down, and leaned in until her forehead touched his chest. "Then learn," he said. Out in the ballroom, Richard made the first move. He took the stage before Vivian could and smiled into the lights. "My niece has always had a flair for drama," he said, drawing soft laughter. "But tonight, I'm afraid I must protect our shareholders from a fraud." Screens lit up across the room. There it was, their contract. Pages from the fake marriage agreement, payment clauses, media terms, signatures. Gasps spread like fire. Cameras swung toward Ethan and Vivian. Public humiliation, live and merciless. Richard let the silence stretch. "This man is not my niece's husband in any meaningful sense. He is a paid actor, a convenient prop brought in to manipulate the company's succession clause." 100 eyes locked on Ethan, some mocking, some hungry, some disgusted. Vivian stepped forward anyway. Each step looked like it hurt. "It began as a contract," she said into the microphone. Richard smiled. Then she kept talking. "But if we're exposing lies tonight, let's expose all of them." The screens changed. Claire's face appeared. Then hospital reports, internal Ashford emails, buried adverse trial data, payoff records, audio clips. Richard's smile vanished. "My father approved the suppression. Make the families sign NDAs. If the accountant talks, handle it." The room erupted. Voices, shouting, phones held high.
Vivian turned toward the crowd, pale but unshaking. "For years, this company profited from silence. My father built an empire on it. Richard protected it. And a woman named Claire Cole died trying to bring the truth into the light when I was too weak to stand beside her." Ethan stood frozen. Hearing Claire's name in that room felt like hearing a ghost kick the doors open. Richard lunged for the stage mic. "She's delirious. She's unstable." "I'm dying," Vivian said, louder now. "Not delirious. Dying. There's a difference. And because I am dying, I'm no longer afraid of men who mistake wealth for power." The room went dead quiet. Then Richard did the one thing guilty men do when truth corners them. He got cruel. He pointed at Ethan. "Ask the grieving widower if he knew he was sleeping in the penthouse of the family that killed his wife. Ask him if the payout felt worth it." Every camera hit Ethan. And in that second, everything hung there. Claire, Emma, the contract, the lies, the rage. Vivian's body swayed beside him. She was still standing, but barely. If he said the wrong thing, Richard won. If he said nothing, Vivian fell alone. So Ethan took the microphone. His hands were shaking. His voice wasn't. "He's right about one thing," Ethan said. "It started fake." The room leaned in. "She came to my door with a contract, a gun, and enough secrets to bury 10 people. I agreed because my daughter needed surgery, and I was out of miracles. Then I found out the woman I blamed for everything had spent 5 years trying to clean up the blood her family spilled. Too late for my wife. Too late for a lot of people." He turned and looked at Vivian. She looked wrecked, terrified, human. But not too late to tell the truth. Richard scoffed. "And now what? We're meant to applaud because a billionaire grew a conscience on her deathbed?" "No," Ethan said. "You're supposed to be afraid because the people you thought would stay ashamed aren't ashamed anymore." Somewhere in the ballroom, someone started clapping. Then another. Then more. Not for wealth, not for spectacle, for exposure, for the end of fear. Richard moved toward the exit. Security moved faster. Vivian exhaled like her body had been holding that breath for years. Then she collapsed. The next hours blurred into sirens and white light. Hospital hallways, consent forms, Emma crying into Ethan's shirt when he had to tell her Vivian was in surgery after a brain bleed. Doctors saying words like pressure and risk and uncertain. At 4:12 a.m., Ethan sat alone in the waiting room, with Claire's voicemail on one side of his mind and Vivian's goodbye envelope on the other. Emma had fallen asleep with her head in his lap. He looked at his daughter's small fingers curled around his sleeve and understood something he wished he'd learned sooner. Love doesn't always arrive clean. Sometimes it comes guilty, bleeding, late, asking for a second chance. Nobody owes it. When the surgeon finally walked in, Ethan stood so fast, the chair tipped over. "She's alive," the doctor said. 2 words. Alive. Not fine, not safe, not miracle. Just alive. And somehow that was enough to make his knees buckle. Weeks passed. Richard was indicted. Ashford Global stock cratered, then steadied under emergency trustees. Victim families came forward. Claire's name was cleared publicly. Emma's surgery happened on schedule and went well. For the first time in years, Ethan watched his daughter sleep without counting breaths. Vivian woke slowly. Speech first, then memory, then fury when she learned the board had tried to install another puppet in her place before the press destroyed them. By the time Ethan brought Emma to see her, Vivian was sitting up in a hospital bed, wearing no makeup, no jewelry, and a look of annoyance so familiar it made something inside him ease. Emma marched straight to the bed and held out a plastic container. "What's this?" Vivian asked. "Hospital pudding," Emma said. "Dad says it tastes like sadness, so I brought you contraband fries, too." Vivian looked at the fries, then at Emma, then laughed so suddenly she started crying halfway through it. Ethan had never seen anything more beautiful. Emma climbed carefully onto the bed and hugged her. Not polite, not hesitant. A real child's hug. Total, trusting, dangerous. Vivian closed her eyes and held on like she was afraid the moment might be taken back. Later, when Emma went to find the vending machines with a nurse, Ethan stayed by the window. The city burned gold outside. Vivian looked smaller now, softer, still fierce, but no longer trying to hide every bruise from the world. "I read the envelope," he said. She winced. "I hoped you wouldn't until I was dead. It was more dramatic that way." He almost smiled. "Don't joke." "I joke when I'm scared." "I know." A quiet settled between them. Then she looked at him and asked the hardest question in the room. "Do you still hate me?" Ethan thought about it. About Claire. About grief. About the voicemail. About the woman who had failed his wife, then spent the rest of her own life trying to pay a debt that could never be paid in full. "I hated what you did," he said. "I hated what your silence cost us." Her eyes dropped. "But I don't hate who you became after it broke you." Vivian looked up slowly. He moved to her bedside. "I don't know what this is," he said. "It's messy. It started wrong. Half the time you infuriate me. The other half, I can't stop thinking about the fact that my daughter breathes easier because you walked into my life like a storm." For once, the billionaire CEO had no smart answer. Just tears. Ethan took her hand. No cameras, no contract, no audience. Just truth, finally unarmed. "So here's the part nobody gets to fake," he said softly. 30 days are over. If you want me gone, I'll go. If you want me to stay, ask me for real." Vivian's lips trembled. The strongest woman he had ever met looked at him like strength had exhausted itself, and hope was stepping in wearing its clothes. "Stay," she whispered. "No deal, no clause, no lie. Just stay." He bent and kissed her forehead first. Because some loves begin with hunger. The important ones begin with mercy. Months later, after the trials, after the headlines faded, after Emma's scar turned pale and the penthouse stopped feeling like a mausoleum, Ethan found Vivian barefoot in the kitchen at midnight, eating artisanal berries straight from the carton. "Those are absurdly overpriced," he said. She smiled without looking up. "And yet here you are." Emma's laughter drifted down the hallway in her sleep-talking way, and for one suspended second, the whole broken road behind them seemed to go quiet. Ethan stepped behind Vivian, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. She covered his hands with hers. No audience, no danger at the door, no contract waiting to expire. Just a woman who had finally chosen truth. A man who had finally let love arrive in a form he never expected. And a little girl in the next room, alive enough to dream loudly. Some stories begin with a proposal. The ones that change you begin with a lie. And end the moment two damaged people decide, against all reason, to tell the truth anyway.